Orphan boy warns blind billionaire, "Don't take those pills, you'll regret it." What happened next shocked everyone. Rain hammered the mansion like fists on a locked door. Velvet curtains breathed. Lamps hummed. In the master suite, a blind billionaire sat upright, fingers testing the child-proof cap that never felt child-proof. Victor Langley tilted his head, listening for truth inside silence. The amber bottle whispered against his wedding band. The bedroom doors flew open. An 8-year-old boy, Noah Carter, drenched and shaking, skidded across the rug. "Don't take those pills, Mr. Langley. You'll regret it." His voice cracked, then steadied, small yet certain, like a match in a long corridor. Sylvia Monroe turned from the vanity. Diamond studs flashed, smile vanished, perfume drifted over old cedar and rain. "Victor, he shouldn't be here." Noah pointed at the bottle. "They're wrong." The word hung there, heavier than thunder. "How do you know?" Victor asked. Kane balanced on his knees. "Smell?" Noah said. "Tea shouldn't taste like coins. Steam shouldn't sting your tongue. Cabinets shouldn't be locked when someone needs help." He swallowed. "My mother said those signs mean danger." Lightning stitched the sky. Somewhere deep in the house a drawer clicked, as if memory itself had hinges. Sylvia stepped closer, voice soft as velvet rope. "Noah is confused. Then why does the kitchen have a vial with a label that peels off?" Noah whispered. "Why do the cups by your tray look clean but smell bitter?" He held up a crumpled page from a pocket notebook, a shaky sketch of a spoon with a dark rim. "I've been keeping track." Victor's hand paused over the cap. The bottle rattled, little warnings trapped in glass. He turned toward the boy's breathing, measuring distance, intent, and courage. Rain shivered along the windows. Sylvia's ring brushed the nightstand. Noah's shoulders squared. Thunder rolled, close as a heartbeat. What happened next will shock you. 6 months earlier, the hilltop mansion kept the rain at arm's length, letting water slip down slate in silver sheets while the city below blurred into drowned light. Inside, Victor Langley moved by sound and touch. His ash cane tapped baseboards, and fingertips traced bead and crown molding. 3 years had passed since a laboratory flashed into heat and silence, stealing sight in a single breath and scattering the empire he had built across a decade. Once, drivers rotated high-end cars through a glass-walled garage. Now the cars rested under covers while their owner measured rooms by echo and scent. He clung to routine because routine felt like a rope stretched across dark water. The chef placed braille magnets on the refrigerator door, and assistants recorded memos he could scan at speed. His attorney negotiated exits nobody had imagined. Victor rose at 5, counted steps on a gym mat, listened to market summaries, and dictated letters for foundation scholars. Sometimes the old hunger stirred, the impulse to shape code into companies. He caught the feeling, then set it down when fatigue pressed behind his eyes like winter weather and headaches edged the day. Sylvia Monroe entered that hush with competence that disarmed everyone. She had known Victor before the explosion, back when flashes belonged to cameras and parties. Afterward she returned with casseroles, calendars and calm, vowing not to leave him to silence. She read emails aloud without pity, learned the house by heart, and greeted staff by name. When she moved into the East Wing, schedules tightened, deliveries arrived on time, and donors felt guided. Her sleek black hair and dazzling smile made an easy photograph, yet the greater charm was practical devotion. She made mornings work. At breakfast she praised Maria's scones, teased the driver about last night's score, and reminded the groundsman to tarp rose beds before frost. She asked Victor about dreams, not symptoms, then wrote notes on symptoms anyway. The ring on her hand clicked softly against porcelain when she poured tea. When guests came for philanthropic planning, she set chairs for clear paths and narrated slides with crisp precision. People left saying the household felt lighter. When corridors emptied, her smile thinned, as if effort demanded a private tax. Noah Carter arrived with the rain. 8 years old, small, raincoat big enough for two. He followed the groundsman through a side gate and stood beneath cypress branches while wind rolled off the ridge. The foster placement sat down the road. The groundsman offered hours to keep a quick mind busy. Noah learned the estate like a song. He found where puddles formed and which path drained fastest. He watched the conservatory fog when clouds pressed close, listened to glass tick under temperature shifts, and noticed how gravel sounded different near hidden drains. Rain gave the mansion a metronome. Cabinets with felt pads closed like held breath. The walk-in refrigerator hummed an old note through tile, and the dishwasher coughed twice before falling quiet. Noah counted those beats. From the mudroom, he watched breakfast trays stage in the back hall, the scent of toast and citrus rising into the air that usually smelled of lemon oil and soap. He noticed a thread that did not belong, Steam carrying something metallic like coins between teeth. He did not name it, he drew it as a line in a pocket notebook. Victor chased balance while the season outside turned louder. He lifted the cane, found the center on the thick mat, and followed the therapist's steady count. The long windows watched rain fall in veils. Afterward, Sylvia guided him to the kitchen. Maria pressed a warm roll into his hand and laughed about the weather. The kettle whispered, then sang. A drawer slid open. Paper rasped. Glass tapped china. Victor reached for the cup, grateful for ritual even when comfort arrived wrapped in ache. He drank and felt a tingle under his tongue. The house kept shining despite the storm. Marble floors glowed under chandeliers that ticked as metal settled. Portraits looked past him with practiced indifference. The music room held a Bechstein he avoided because grief would sound like those keys under unsteady fingers. In the master suite, the bed smelled of orange oil, rain brushed the windows, and Sylvia's calendar lay open beside the cane. She read messages from partners asking for guidance on a rescue round, and he answered carefully, wanting to feel useful without pretending strength he did not have. Maria treated Noah as if food could solder broken edges. She offered half an orange, a cookie wrapped in a napkin, and stories about her brother fishing the delta before dawn. Noah listened because stories carry maps. In quiet minutes, he sketched in a pocket notebook, a spoon with a dark rim, a dropper without a label, a cup left alone on a tray. He did not accuse anyone on paper. He drew to fix memory, the way a gardener stakes a sapling until roots take hold. Rain beat time along gutters and marched history across the hill. Weeks stacked themselves. Specialists adjusted prescriptions. Sylvia organized deliveries, kept meetings short, and made sure doors stayed secure whenever storms cut valley power. Emma from the foundation arrived, shared a scholar's first patent, and cried in the driveway. Investors came with decks and left charmed, repeating that Sylvia kept everything running. Victor told himself that was true. Yet by night, his tongue tingled and words blurred at their edges. Sleep slipped away, then returned heavy as lead. He explained it as recovery, patient and slow, and tried not to count missteps with the cane. One afternoon, Noah paused at the pantry door and watched a routine refine itself. The built-in drawer eased outward with a small sigh. He had found it locked on other days. Now a key turned and tumblers clicked. Sylvia stood with shoulders set, profile calm. A brown vial waited near her hand, the cap resting on its side. She uncapped the dropper and squeezed, letting dark beads fall into Victor's porcelain cup. A spoon stirred. A faint stain along the rim caught light. Footsteps sounded in the hall, and her smile returned before she turned toward the doorway. Victor believed devotion had carried him over the chasm his own ambition carved. He wanted that belief to be right. He wanted the house to be a sanctuary rather than a museum. Most days, he succeeded at that wish by force of will. On others, strength fled without reason. He reached for the cane and found it heavier, heard rain and felt it working inside his bones, tasted medicine and thought of metal. Downstairs, a boy folded his notebook and decided to watch more closely. Upstairs, a man breathed past doubt and lifted a cup that promised rest and carried worry. Outside, thunder rolled across the ridge and answered itself in delays, as if the sky were counting. The chandeliers ticked, the marble cooled, and the mansion listened. Noah tied his boots, pocketed the notebook and chose patience over panic, because patience lets truth gather proof. Victor sat with the cane across his knees, weighing silence against risk, and decided to trust the next small sound more than a practiced smile. Noah woke before the house because the mansion speaks quietly when storms lean against its bones. Pipes whispered behind plaster, vents sighed, and rain tapped the small window above his narrow bed. The servant quarters held a metal locker, a desk with one wobbly leg, a thin blanket, and the notebook he used to keep memories from sliding away. He dressed without turning on the light, tied his boots, and stepped into the service corridor that smelled of wax, lemon, and warm bread from the kitchen. Maria greeted him with a mug that fit both hands. "Warm your fingers," she said. The stove hissed. Batter met iron. The refrigerator clicked. A washer thumped like a slow heartbeat. Noah stood near the doorway where steam would not fog his glasses and watched the pantry hall because footsteps tell the truth when words pretend. Sylvia came in with a clipboard, heels soft on tile, hair smooth as ink, smile ready for donors and schedules. The kettle whispered, then sang. Sylvia opened a drawer that Noah knew stayed locked when she was away. Keys chimed, tumblers clicked, wood moved with the hush of habit. Her hand lifted a small brown vial. Dark beads fell into Victor's porcelain cup. A spoon tapped the rim twice, leaving a ring where liquid kissed metal. She stirred, wiped the spoon and lifted the tray. Noah smelled something wrong, metallic, like coins pressed under a tongue. His mother had trusted her nose more than labels, had said never swallow what stings before it reaches your teeth. Sylvia glided toward the lift, perfume trailing through citrus and butter. Noah drew a droplet with a rim in his notebook, wrote the time, and circled the number 2. Thick carpets ate his steps while chandeliers dimmed against a bruised sky. In the south sitting room, Victor waited with his cane across his knees. He turned toward the tray, said good morning, and held his dignity like a fragile bowl. Sylvia set the cup in his hand and brushed his knuckles. The ring's edge clicked against porcelain. Noah watched the cup lift toward a mouth that trusted hands more than air and caught the metallic scent again. Doctors visited on Tuesdays and some Fridays. Pressure normal, pulse steady, reflexes fine, charts stacked like tidy answers. Yet by afternoon, Victor's hands trembled while he searched for the groove between tiles. Words landed slurred at the edges, as if someone had blurred lines on purpose. Recovery is uneven, Sylvia told visitors, sliding printouts across marble. Noah washed cups nobody asked him to wash. He held them toward the light and found a thin smear that bleach refused to chase away. He traced the spoon's curve on paper and shaded the place where color clung. Maria set a plate near his elbow and told him to eat before the pancakes cooled. He described what he had witnessed, every motion of hand and key, every tap of metal on china. Her eyes softened, then gathered worry. Households this size keep lists, she said, and storms cut budgets. Hold your tongue. I cannot protect you if you pick a fight you cannot prove. He nodded because gratitude has weight. That night, the rain thinned to mist, and the hill wore a veil. He memorized the pattern of locks and the oval of shine where a thumb had polished the drawer's handle. Behind him the dishwasher finished and bowed with a click. Morning returned the scene exactly. The drawer opened, the vial appeared, beads fell, the spoon turned, the cup slid to its mark. Noah checked the clock and wrote to anchor memory. Later, the therapist counted numbers while Victor stepped carefully, missed once, recovered and smiled a tired apology. In the greenhouse he rotated seed trays while Rain rehearsed new rhythms against glass. When Maria finished chopping herbs, he tried again. He described the metallic scent, the key that only sang for Sylvia, and the pattern that lined up across mornings like fence posts in fog. She thanked him for caring and asked him to keep brave thoughts quiet until there was proof that could face a paycheck. He waited near the pantry, listening for glass kissing glass. He heard it, stepped forward, and saw the drawer slide, the dropper tilt, the spoon ring. 2 cups on the rack seemed cleaner than the rest, yet both carried a scent he could not miss. A label edge on the vial looked peeling, then pressed back. He touched the countertop and felt a pinprick that stung long after he wiped it dry. Victor cancelled a visit with a scholar and asked for tea earlier tomorrow. He thanked Sylvia for her patience and complimented the roses without seeing how petals bowed under the weather. The house sounds peaceful, he said. Noah wanted to tell him that quiet can hide bite and that steam can carry harm disguised as help, yet boys with muddy boots do not rearrange adult rooms. Tuesday returned with its tidy clipboard. Charts gleamed. Everything looked fine. A tremor stole the space between cup and saucer. Noah took 3 steps, then stopped because bold can look like trouble when proof will not stand beside you. He decided to build a case that could carry its own weight, stack mornings, record times, and map smells until truth ran out of corners. That evening he wiped tables after a reception while the wind pressed the ridge. The pantry door stood slightly open. He heard the faint kiss of glass on glass, then the hush of a drawer closing. He swallowed, knocked and waited. Sylvia opened, surprised and bright, then cooler when she saw him. He asked for towels. She handed 2 and reminded him to ask Maria next time. Keys chimed when she turned away. Lights flickered once. The mansion steadied like a ship finding balance. In his pocket, the notebook waited with thin drawings that felt heavier than paper should feel. He pressed the cover flat and wrote a sentence his mother would recognize if ink could cross distance. Pay attention until truth has nowhere left to hide. He breathed out and tasted metal again, faint but stubborn. Then he added one final line beneath the last sketch, a question meant for anyone who had ever stood where he stood. Have you ever noticed something off but felt too scared to speak up? Share below. That night he lay awake and watched ceiling shadows drift across the plaster like slow clouds. He recited his mother's rules under his breath to keep doubt from bending them out of shape. Never drink what bites the tongue before it meets the teeth. Never trust a label that peels without a fight. Never ignore a drawer that sleeps only when eyes do. When sleep finally came, it felt thin. He woke to the kettle again and the pattern returned as if printed on tracing paper. By afternoon, Victor's voice blurred, syllables stumbling like shoes that did not fit. He tried to sign a letter and needed Maria to steady the paper. Sylvia said the body gets ahead of itself when healing. That patience fixes noise. Noah wrote the time, underlined it twice, and drew a small trembling hand beside the numbers.
Noah learned the mansion's moods like bus routes. Hallways hummed, curtains sighed, and certain boards always complained. Rain stayed, turning windows into grey mirrors while the household spoke softly because storms make lies quiet. Outside Victor's study, he stood behind a fern and listened. Sylvia's reception voice could sugar anything. Now it carried ice. Sign the documents, she said. Your board needs closure. Not today, Victor answered. My head feels slow. Tomorrow becomes next week, she replied. Investors hate drift. When the door swung wide, Sylvia's smile snapped on. She handed Noah linens without asking why he lingered. Be helpful, she said, closing the door gently
as if quiet were kindness. In the kitchen, he rinsed cups while steam fogged panes. A spoon waited near the sink, rim filmed with a stain light refused to erase. He lifted it to his nose. A metallic bite cut through soap, the same ghost he had noticed rising from Victor's cup. Tile clicked under heels. What exactly are you doing? Sylvia stood by the drawer he tracked in his notebook, one hand on its wood, the other holding her phone. Maria asked me to finish these, he said, showing wet sleeves. Her smile narrowed. Finish, then rake the south path. Do not touch things beyond your chores. Keys sang, wood slid. He pretended to hunt towels while she measured invisible drops and stirred a cup waiting on a tray. Maria found him later beside the laundry, staring at a blank page. He told her about the spoon, the smell, the cold voice upstairs. Jobs shrink when storms stretch, she whispered. Hard months make bosses nervous. Keep your head down. He nodded because warnings sometimes wear love. Morning repeated itself. Drawer opened. Vial appeared. Beads fell. Spoon rang. The cup slid to its mark. By afternoon, Victor's hand trembled while he sought the groove between tiles. Words blurred at their edges, as if someone smudged lines on purpose. In the greenhouse, Noah rotated seed trays while Rain rehearsed rhythms against glass. He described the metallic scent, the key that only sang for Sylvia, the pattern that lined mornings like fence posts in fog. Maria thanked him for caring, and asked him to keep brave thoughts quiet until proof could stand alone. He waited near the pantry, listening for glass touching glass. He heard it, stepped forward, saw the drawer slide, the dropper tilt, the spoon ring. 2 cups on the rack looked cleaner than the rest, yet both carried that coin ghost. A label edge on the vial looked peeling, then pressed back. He touched the counter and felt a pinprick that stung after he wiped it dry. Victor cancelled a visit with a scholar and asked for tea earlier. The house sounds peaceful, he said. Noah wanted to tell him that quiet can hide bite, that steam can carry harm disguised as help, yet boys with muddy boots do not rearrange adult rooms. Tuesday delivered clipboards. Charts gleamed. Everything looked fine. A tremor stole distance between cup and saucer. Noah took 3 steps, then stopped, deciding proof must carry itself. He stacked times in his notebook until truth would run out of corners. Evening brought a reception. Sylvia glowed. Laughter lifted ceilings. Upstairs, Victor faltered with simple words. When the tour ended, charm drained like light, leaving stained glass after sunset. During the lull, he checked the pantry. The drawer stood closed, but a dark ring marked the counter. His fingertips stung even after washing. The odor returned, faint and stubborn. Wind shoved Rain sideways. Victor misjudged a step and caught himself with the cane before he fell. He sat on the bottom step, breathing through embarrassment. I despise this, he whispered. The house held its breath. Sylvia arrived with a blanket and a pill schedule printed in large font, even though he could not see it. Take these, she said warmly. Sleep, and tomorrow will feel lighter. Maria pressed a pastry into Noah's palm and told him he could not push luck forever. Maybe, he said. Luck begins when someone listens to a bad smell. She almost smiled, then shook her head. Child, you speak like an old man. Night carved the hill into islands of light. The household slept. The storm did not. Noah crept to the kitchen, lifted the trash lid, and found the discarded spoon. He slipped it into a zip bag he had used for marbles once. Even through plastic, the chemical bite leaked. He wrote one word on tape. Proof. He turned and collided with a shadow that had walked without sound. What is in your hand? Sylvia's voice no longer wore velvet. He could not lie quickly enough. She took the bag, examined the spoon, and clicked her tongue. Sticky syrup from cough medicine. Maria should have rinsed better. You snoop because you want attention. She tossed the bag into a deeper bin, closed the lid hard enough to echo, then leaned until perfume crowded every inch of air. You are here by charity. Test me again and I will end. I am sorry, he said, hating each syllable because a voice had made courage feel small. She dismissed him with a flick and walked away, heels tapping out a victory he refused to accept. Back in his room he drew the spoon again, darker. He added the bag, the bin, the tilt of her mouth. He wrote phrases beneath the sketches because sentences felt heavy. Drawer opened, drops fell, cup rose, voice cold, threat spoken. On a clean page he listed questions his mother would ask. Why did that smell haunt cups intended for Victor? Why did the drawer unlock only when eyes that disagreed stayed busy elsewhere? Why did weakness grow while charts stayed kind? Morning brought lavender through the clouds. Victor's hand shook more than yesterday, and a slur nicked 3 words during a call with the attorney. He set the phone down and asked Sylvia to summon Emma. She has no time, she said, pouring tea that steamed like a secret. Trust me. Victor lifted the cup, stopped, and lowered it until China kissed China. Something is wrong here, he said, each word steady. I feel it moving in my house. Grief plays tricks, she replied. Exhaustion makes shadows jump. Then why do I dread the kitchen? He asked. She laughed lightly, not enough to sound real, because you cannot see hot surfaces.
He pressed his ring against the saucer and listened to the faint clink. "I hear things you do not intend me to hear." Thunder marched past like boots. Noah stood beyond the threshold, half hidden by a cart. The urge to shout rose like a flare, but he held it because flares burn out. He wrote instead, copying a line that did not belong to either of them. "What would you do if you saw someone hiding a secret? Tell us in the comments." Victor turned toward the doorway as if his face knew where fear gathered. "Who is there?" he asked softly. "No one," Sylvia answered, already moving to close space, already stirring. The spoon chimed once, and Rain climbed the glass while Noah steadied his breath and sharpened his resolve for the truth.
Morning broke under bruised clouds. In the master suite, Victor Langley sat on the bed's edge with his cane across the quilt. He turned an amber bottle in his palm and listened to pills bump the glass, weighing relief against fog. He loosened the cap until it clicked. Footsteps came fast on the hall runner. The door pushed inward, then stopped against Noah Carter's small shoulder. The boy slipped through, hair damp, sneakers wet. "Mr. Langley," he whispered, "please don't take that." Victor lifted his head, reading distance by sound. "Explain." Rain drummed. "Drops come from a locked drawer," Noah said. "Tea smells like coins. A spoon keeps a ring after washing. Your hands shake more every day." He added, "That makes it worse." Victor hesitated, thumb on the ridges. "Doctors changed my dosages. Everyone says patience. Trust your body," the boy said. "Trust my nose." Lightning flared. Victor raised the bottle. Noah lunged, knocked it from his hand, and sent it pinwheeling across the nightstand. Pills burst over oak, scattering like confetti from a cruel celebration. The room froze. "What have you done?" Victor asked, voice old with shock. "Kept you safe," Noah said. "She's poisoning you." The corridor air changed ahead of footsteps. Perfume arrived first. Sylvia Monroe stepped in. Practiced smile gone. She saw the floor, the cap on its side, the boy between bed and storm. "Noah," she said, "ice over velvet. Leave, now. He saved me," Victor answered, steady at last. "At least he believes that. He believes stories," she snapped. "He lurks in the kitchen, rifling bins. You're exhausted. He knows it." Noah did not move. "You unlock a drawer that only you keep. You tilt a dropper over his cup. 2 porcelain cups smell bitter, while the rack smells clean. A label edge keeps peeling. I drew pictures. I wrote times." His hands shook, voice held. Victor turned toward Sylvia. "What is he describing?" "Herbal support," she said, softening her tone. "A clinic suggested it after your last visit. It helps you rest." He misread what he saw. "No doctor told me," he said. "You sign many forms," she replied. "I shield you from noise." "I do not remember sedatives," he said. "You resist sleep," she countered. "Someone must manage a schedule when storms keep you on edge." Victor leaned down, fingertips brushing a tablet near his shoe. The small shape ticked against his ring. He set it on the nightstand. "Bring the vials," he said. "Every bottle you have used. Now." She held the doorframe. "I will not be ordered around in front of a child." "Please," he answered. The cane tapped wood. "Do not make me ask again." Sylvia exhaled through her nose, then pivoted toward the hall. She stepped around Noah, heels tapping. The sound faded. Victor let out a long breath. "How long?" he asked. "Since rain began," Noah said. "I kept a notebook. Drawer clicks, spoon taps, tea steams with a bite. You slur by afternoon. I told Maria. She fears losing work. You should not carry this alone," Victor said. Lightning cracked close. Victor reached out, palm open. Noah placed his hand there. The man squeezed once. Footsteps returned. Sylvia entered with a tray lined with a cloth. Bottles clicked against porcelain. "Inventory," she said. "Nothing to hide." She set the tray on the dresser. "Read the labels," Victor said. She listed names: magnesium, melatonin, chamomile, and valerian. Plastic tapped glass. "Prescription sedative," she added. "Low dose. Approved." "Approved by whom?" he asked. "By the clinic," she said. "We discussed it. You agreed." "I remember no such talk," he replied. "You were exhausted," she said. "Trust me." "I choose whom to trust," he answered. He tilted his face toward the tray. The bitter edge rose through citrus and wood. "Open the brown vial." "That is unnecessary," she replied. "It is necessary," he said. "Open it." Glass sighed. A cap turned. Even Noah, across the rug, caught the coin ghost he had followed for weeks. Victor's jaw tightened. "Explain." "You're both mistaken," she said. "That is a standard compound used everywhere. The dose is tiny. You can rest without fear. Then you will have no objection to verification," Victor said. "We will read it against the records from my physician." "We can do that later," she said. "You need to be calm." "I need truth," he replied. Thunder rolled overhead. Somewhere downstairs, a tray clattered. "Pick up what you can," Victor told Noah. The boy crouched and swept tablets into his palm, setting them on the nightstand far from reach. Victor rose, moving with care. He turned to Sylvia. "No more tea until we finish this review." Her smile returned. "You're letting paranoia lead. I am letting evidence lead," he said, pointing the cane. "Do you call the odor imagination, the locked drawer a coincidence, the trembling an unrelated inconvenience, the boy's record fantasy? He seeks attention," she said. "I seek breath that doesn't weigh a stone," Victor replied. "Today I sound like a stranger to myself." Rain pounded the panes. Sylvia stood between the door and the man she had promised to guard. Her eyes measured distances. She set the vial down with a faint click that sounded like a line being crossed. Noah straightened, notebook tucked under his arm like armor. "Ever stood up for what's right, even when it's scary? Share your story below." The words came out small and solemn. "We are not broadcasting," Victor said, with a tired smile, "but courage deserves air." He lifted his chin. "Maria," he called, raising his voice to reach the stairwell. "Please come upstairs." Sylvia flinched. "Why drag staff into private matters?" "Because I want a witness," he said, "and because I trust her." He found the tray by sound and moved the brown vial away from the others with a firm hand. "This stays sealed until we compare exact names and dosages." He set the cane and offered Noah his shoulder. "Walk with me." "Where?" the boy asked. "To the kitchen," Victor said. "Light, records, telephone, answers." Sylvia blocked the doorway, expression calm. "Review later," she said. "Eat first, rest. A frightened child, and a storm may be the only honest things in this house," Victor answered. "Step aside." For a breath, the three held their positions like figures in a painting. Then the cane tapped once, the boy's shoulders rose, and the woman chose a smile that hid teeth. She shifted just enough for them to pass, calculating, gathering options. Victor and Noah moved into the hall, one guided by sound, one guarded by sight. Thunder chased them into the corridor. Portraits loomed while runners held damp. Victor steadied with his cane, and Noah hugged his notebook. A draft carried kitchen scents, metal under lemon, sharp. Somewhere, a phone rang and died before a second chime. The generator kicked awake. Sylvia followed at a measured distance. The boy stood between her and Victor. Each step felt like a decision. The house, used to obedience, heard defiance, and learned language. Behind them, the bottle sat capped. Pills on the nightstand glowed like truth, and the house seemed to listen. Thunder followed them down the corridor as carpets held damp like secrets. Victor kept one hand on his cane and another near Noah's shoulder until the tile replaced the runner. The kitchen lights glowed under the generator. Rain pounded the windows so hard the panes trembled. "Place every vial on the island," Victor said, voice ironed flat. "Nothing stays hidden." Sylvia set a tray down, arranging bottles with showy care. "You need breakfast," she replied. "We can read labels after you eat." "We read them now," he answered. Maria wiped her hands and looked from man to woman to child. "What's happening?" Noah pointed to the brown bottle. "That one, the smell." Sylvia reached for it while angling toward the sink. Her wrist turned, quick as a magician palming a coin. Noah stepped across the gap. "No switching." "I wasn't," she said, smile brittle. Victor rapped the island with his cane. "Open each container and read the name, strength, and prescriber." Maria pulled a magnifier from a drawer and placed the handle in his palm. "I'll hold the labels to the lens." Sylvia hesitated. Rain drummed harder. She twisted the first cap. Magnesium citrate. The second, melatonin. "Next," Victor pressed. She opened a white bottle. "Lorazepam, 1 milligram," she murmured. Her eyes flicked toward the sink. Victor turned his head, hearing intent. "Physician?" She licked her lips. "Dr. Kessler." "Mine?" he asked. "No," she admitted. "Does?" "Twice daily." "For whom?" She raised her chin. "You," Maria inhaled. "That's a controlled sedative," she said. "Who authorized it?" Sylvia tried to laugh. Failed. "A consultant recommended support after a rough month. I filled the script when your calendar couldn't spare another appointment." "You forged consent," Victor replied. "I expedited care," she snapped. "By keeping me drowsy," he answered. "By dulling speech and hands." She reached for the brown vial, aiming to slide it behind a cutting board. Noah caught her wrist. "Don't." Her eyes hardened. "You're far from your chores." "He's protecting me," Victor said. "Continue." Maria stepped between Sylvia and the sink. "I'm staying." "Fine," Sylvia replied. She opened the brown vial. The metallic ghost climbed at once. Victor stiffened. "Name it." "Chloral hydrate," she whispered. Maria set the magnifier down. "Not herbal. Dangerous with benzodiazepines." "Concentration?" Victor asked. 7%. "How long?" "Months," she said. "Since winter." "Why?" he asked. Quiet enough to unstring nerves. She stared at the island. "Because you stalled. You wouldn't sign transfers without 3 calls. Donors lost patience. I kept everything moving." "We?" Victor asked. "You had a ring and access. I had a life's work." Her poise cracked. "I took meetings that no one offered before. I carried the story you used to carry alone. I deserved more than polite gratitude." Maria shook her head. You quieted him to speed your script. I managed chaos, Sylvia shot back. A little rest smoothed ours. Noah pointed at the lorazepam. Rest made hands shake, words slur, side effects, she said. Temporary. Victor tapped the tile with the cane. You drugged me for months to move me like furniture. She flinched. I loved you and refused to watch your life collapse because grief drowned judgment. You loved my bank, Maria said. Both can be true, Sylvia replied. I wanted stability, security, control. I wanted the board to take me seriously. Mixing unprescribed sedatives with benzodiazepines is a crime, Maria answered. Victor turned toward the storm. Call my attorney. Call the police. Sylvia moved fast, snatching the brown vial, aiming for her pocket. Noah clipped her elbow. The bottle skittered across the steel before Maria trapped it under an upside-down saucepan. Liquid streaked the surface, smelling like pennies. That's enough, Maria said. Stay still. You'll ruin your reputation, Sylvia warned Victor. Headlines feed on fragile men in silk sheets. I'd rather be honest than ornamental, he replied. Every secret you used already weakened me. She looked at Noah. You think you're brave? He deserves clear air, the boy said. A distant siren threaded the rain. Victor lifted the magnifier again, read the rest. Sylvia obeyed, naming valerian, chamomile, passion flower, then 2 more benzodiazepines, clonazepam and temazepam, plus a bottle labeled Zopiclone without a pharmacy sticker. Maria photographed caps, lot numbers, and the brown vial under the pan. She also captured Sylvia's hand, angled toward the sink, a breath before Noah blocked the switch. Attempted disposal, Maria said. Sylvia's mouth twisted. You're a cook. Stay in your lane. I feed the people you tried to control, Maria answered. Today my lane includes truth. The siren grew louder, then passed, probably heading toward a crash on slick asphalt. Rain lashed harder, rivers crawling along the sill. Victor pressed fingers to the island and let anger breathe without owning him. You could have asked for a partnership, he said. Instead you chose a leash. You would have said no, she replied. Then I would have stayed kind without surrendering dignity, he said. Now you get neither. Her shoulders sagged. I did not want you to die. You wanted me quiet, he corrected. Those are cousins, not twins. She exhaled, shook, then stood straighter, choosing confession like armor turned inside out. Fine, I wanted your wealth. I wanted the foundation to be under my direction and a seat that people respected. I thought if I kept you still I could build us a smoother life. Call it greed or strategy. It worked until the boy sniffed the lie. Noah stared at the thin gleam under the pan. Lies smell, he said. Knuckles thudded at the mudroom. Police, a voice called. Maria opened. 2 officers stepped in, water running from ponchos. A paramedic followed with a kit. Maria pointed toward the island. Sedatives, she said. Multiple, mixed without prescription. Months. Sylvia lifted her hands. I'll explain with counsel present. Victor squeezed the cane. Explain to the camera too. We document everything today. An officer placed vials into evidence bags. The paramedic checked pupils, pulse and breath, then suggested evaluation at the hospital. Combination could have complicated your nervous system, she said gently. We'll run labs. Victor nodded. I'll go. Sylvia's expression crumpled. Victor. He turned away. No more. Leave. The officers guided her toward the hall. She tried one last time to sound tender. I planned a future. You wrote it over my body, he replied. I'm taking the pen back. Rain hammered harder. Maria wrapped a coat around Noah's shoulders and set the notebook into his hands. You did right, she said. You held steady. Victor reached toward the boy, palm open. Noah met it. The grip steadied both. You gave me back my voice, Victor told him. Then he squared his shoulders toward the storm and felt strength push through the ache. Power owned without apology. On his way out, he gave clear orders. Maria, pack a small bag for Noah. Driver, warm the car and bring blankets. Security, change codes and secure the medicine cabinet. No beverages for me unless a nurse prepares them. The paramedic nodded approval. Victor angled his face toward the sound of rain and listened without fear. Somewhere beyond the ridge, thunder dimmed. In that fading roll, he heard a boundary close and another open. We start again, he said. This time awake, this time free. Together we heal. Rain battered the kitchen windows while the generator hummed, and lemon oil tried to overpower the metallic ghost that had haunted the house. Evidence bags lay on the island. The first patrol had just stepped out to load them into a cruiser, leaving the paramedic in the hall and Maria beside the stove with a steadying hand on Noah's shoulder. Victor stood with his cane grounded, listening to the room as if reading Braille in the air. What matters now is simple, Victor said. We keep the truth upright until help returns. Sylvia leaned on the door jamb, water sliding from her hair. Her gaze moved from the sealed bags to Noah's notebook, then to the butcher block where knives rose like a steel bouquet. Help, she said, amused. I did what help refused to do. You did harm and named it care, Maria answered. The smile left Sylvia's face. In one fluid motion she pushed off the jamb, crossed the tiles and pulled a chef's knife from the block. The blade flashed under fluorescent light, angling low along her thigh. He cost me everything, she said. nodding at Victor, and the boy ruined the one plan that still worked. Noah stepped in front of Victor without deciding to. Victor heard the soft scuff and lifted the cane across his body like a bar. "Put the knife down," he said. "It ends when I say," Sylvia replied, edging closer. The paramedic backed toward the hallway and raised both hands. Maria hit the green call button. 911, she said, keeping eyes on the blade. "Armed suspect in the kitchen, blind victim, child threatened, urgent." Thunder rolled so close the lamps seemed to shiver. Sylvia's eyes flicked to the mudroom, as if measuring routes. "Set the notebook down and walk away," she told Noah, lifting the knife just enough to make the point. Victor widened his stance until the cane's rubber tip bit grout. "You will not touch him." She lunged, quick and low, trying to slip past the wood and reach the boy. Victor moved on instinct, learned in rooms where balance must be earned. The cane rose and cracked against her wrist. The knife skittered wide, nicking a cabinet door. The sound rang like a wrong bell. Noah crouched behind the island and grabbed the heavy saucepan that had covered the brown vial. He slammed it against a drawer. The bang ricocheted through tile and glass. Sylvia flinched. Victor hooked the cane behind her knee and pulled. She dropped to one hand, snarled, and slashed high. He blocked. Wood met steel with a shriek. Knife still in hand, Maria told the dispatcher. "Send officers now." "Move," Sylvia hissed, breath hot. She cut low. Victor knocked the blade away. It spun across the floor and fetched up under a rolling cart. For a heartbeat, everyone stared at the dark wedge of shadow where steel had disappeared. Sylvia dove for it. Noah launched sideways and kicked the cartwheel. The cart lurched, trapping the handle beneath a leg. Sylvia's fingers scraped metal and came away empty. She shoved the cart. Victor swept the cane across her forearms and set her off balance again. "Enough," he said, and the word carried ownership he had not felt in months. Sirens bled into the storm. Tires hissed on the drive. The paramedic waved from the hall, guiding the response in. Sylvia snatched a paring knife from a drawer and spun back toward Noah, mouth set. Maria hurled a towel at her face. It hit and rapped for half a breath. Victor drove the cane into the open drawer. It slammed on Sylvia's wrist. The paring knife fell. She reeled, reached for anything, found nothing. "Hands where we can see them," a voice barked. Two officers burst through the mudroom, soaked and focused. One swept the counter, the other leveled on Sylvia. "On the ground, now." She hesitated, chest heaving. Victor lifted the cane again, ready to block if she rushed. Noah planted his sneakers and shook, but did not move aside. The officers advanced in careful steps, learned for rooms full of fragile things. "Down," the nearer one repeated. "Don't make this worse." Sylvia looked at the boy, at the man, at the towel on the floor, at the slab of rain beyond the window. Something inside her yielded, not remorse, but the recognition that the story where she won had collapsed. She lowered to her knees and stretched her arms forward. Handcuffs clicked. The room exhaled. Maria sat for 1 second, then stood and put herself back together with a breath. The paramedic checked everyone for cuts. None. An officer recovered the large knife from beneath the cart with a gloved hand and bagged the smaller blade. Radio chatter settled into routine. One read the rights in a voice that had said the words many times. Sylvia glanced up while the cadence rolled past. "You'll regret choosing him over me," she told Victor. "He will cost you time you don't have." Victor tilted his head toward her voice. "He saved the time that matters," he said. "Minutes with meaning." They led her into the hall. The mudroom door opened and let the last hard breath of the storm pass through the kitchen before it closed again. For the first time since dawn, the room felt like itself. The generator dropped a note. Rain softened from fists to fingers. Maria wrapped a dry towel around Noah's shoulders and set the notebook in his hands like a medal pinned after a battle. "You were brave," she whispered. Victor reached and found the boy's shoulder with his palm. The touch was present, unafraid. "I heard you move before the blade moved," he said. "You carried courage where I could reach it." His voice warmed. "Family is a decision. If you want this one, it's yours." Noah's chin trembled. "I do. Then we start there," Victor said, smiling toward the window. The rain had thinned to a veil, and a pale seam of sky edged the ridge like a promise. Birds tested the quiet with notes. The driveway shone with puddles that looked like coins tossed into a fountain by people who believed wishes could be worked for. The house breathed again. The paramedic touched Victor's wrist, bringing the moment back to logistics. "Hospital," she said kindly. "Labs, fluids, rest." "Take us," Victor replied. He squeezed Noah's shoulder and let go. "Pack something comfortable," he told Maria. "Tell the driver we're ready." Maria moved, assembling a small bag. She tucked in the sweater she had chosen for Noah and a thermos for when the world stopped shaking. The officers cleared the doorway, one promising to stay until the car left. Victor lifted the cane, set its tip on the tile, and listened to the changed weather. The storm, which had named their fear all morning, was running out of words. "Storm's over," Noah whispered. "For now," Victor said, finding the door with the map he kept in his ears and bones. "If another comes, we'll meet it awake." Together they stepped into the light that followed rain.
the air bright with petrichor and the fragile confidence of a morning learning how to begin again.
The ambulance hissed along wet streets while daylight thinned the rain. Victor sat upright on the gurney, cane across his knees, Noah's hand threaded through his fingers. Maria rode beside them with a tote, water, sweater, charger, lemon drops. The paramedic radioed intake, repeating medication names lifted from the island, and the brown vial trapped under a pan. Victor breathed as if air were medicine. He had nearly forgotten. Fluorescent corridors opened like long tides. A nurse clipped a pulse oximeter to Victor's finger, began fluids, drew labs, and spoke with a kindness that dignified every step. A neurologist mapped slurred afternoons against pill schedules, ordered scans, and listened harder when Victor said, "My tongue felt heavy before sleep." Results returned with plain words. Combined sedatives had suppressed his central nervous system, producing tremor, fatigue, fogged recall, and language blur that imitated decline. Metabolism would clear them with time. Careful hydration and monitored tapering would keep withdrawal from crashing the climb back. An ophthalmologist reviewed records, then explained a therapy that might reduce inflammation and, with patience, widen a faint door that could still let light through. Victor's jaw shook once with hope he treated like delicate glass. Noah squeezed the hand he held. "You'll see my outline," the boy whispered, and a small laugh brightened the room. Recovery settled into hours that looked ordinary and felt heroic. Nurses steadied electrolytes and offered bland meals that tasted like safety. A physical therapist named Quinn put the cane into rhythm, set hallway goals measured in door frames, and cheered each turn. A speech specialist shaped consonants until the edges returned. The first night brought sleep like mercy. The second welcomed a dream where rain smelled like clean stone. By morning, Victor lifted a cup without the tremor that had made dignity feel far away. He thanked each person by name, then rested because healing respects limits. Maria anchored logistics. She handled calls from officers and counsel, changed every code back home, and scheduled a pharmacist to audit the kitchen with chain of custody forms. She replaced suspect utensils and arranged a deep cleaning that erased the metallic ghost. Between tasks, she read letters from scholars until his smile settled deeper than an ache. "The house will be ready," she promised, and he believed her. Noah stitched joy into clinical minutes. He sketched superheroes out of staff, narrated umbrellas and buses outside, learned IV beeps by pitch, and fetched nurses before the pump could complain. He insisted on thank you notes in tidy letters because gratitude, he said, builds stronger walls than fear. Each ritual gave Victor a map out of fog. On the fourth day, the ophthalmologist dimmed the lights and lifted a penlight. "Tell me if anything changes," she said. A circle flared above left, faint as a memory, then slipped away. Victor gripped the sheet. "Brightness," he murmured. She recommended continuing therapy. It would not undo scars, yet it might add threads of sight where only darkness had remained. While numbers turned kinder, home rearranged itself. Maria and Noah moved into the mansion with the intention. The east wing became a guest suite and a music room for steady work. Drawers gained embossed labels so wandering fingers could learn spaces without worry. The mudroom took on a color like a peach after rain. The greenhouse is filled with basil, strawberries and hardy greens. Security rotated codes and locks. The kitchen threw away every questionable bottle, kept a log beside the kettle, and hung a small sign over the island. "Transparency is love." By the second week, Victor walked 2 full hallways. Quinn added steps, tight turns and foam blocks that simulated spilled life. "Confidence is a muscle," he said. Noah clapped after each lap as if the cane were a wand. When fatigue rolled in like a grey tide, Victor sat, drank water, and refused shame. Legal tides shifted as well. Officers finished logs, counsel filed motions, and a hearing date settled onto a calendar with weight but not terror. Victor answered with patient statements and a request that the investigation follow supply chains thoroughly. Rather than sharpening his anger, he asked the Foundation to audit protocols so no caregiver could hide compounds inside anyone's routine. He apologized to the staff for not hearing unease sooner, a sentence that made the house lighter. Discharge day arrived gently as planned. The physician reviewed instructions, trimmed prescriptions to a clear list, and handed out follow-up dates. Outside, puddles mirrored a sky rinsed clean. In the car, Noah practiced the route home so he could guide with cheerful accuracy. The mansion welcomed them with the sun across the marble that finally looked friendly. A piano tuner had visited. Victor pressed one chord and held its resonance until it faded into an earned hush. They ate soup at the island, tested by a new strip, and then walked through the garden slowly. Hedges whispered. Puddles held bits of sky. They planted a young maple where the split spruce had fallen. Paperwork turned guardianship from intention into law. Victor signed with a steady hand. Noah added a bold initial that looked like lightning. Social workers toured the updated kitchen, asked about school and bedtime stories, and smiled at a stack of library cards waiting on the counter.
The boy chose a room with a blue wall and a window that looked at the ridge. Maria stocked shelves with notebooks and colored pencils. At night, Victor read aloud while Noah traced the rhythms of words he wanted to own. Some Saturdays, foundation scholars visited. Victor listened to prototypes, offered questions that kept edges honest, and invited Maria to explain logistics nobody teaches in engineering school. Noah took attendance with an oversized clipboard and closed sessions by naming one kindness someone had shown. Progress sounded like a choir. Follow-ups brought small victories. The light blinked again, holding a breath longer. Victor did not cry. He breathed like a swimmer breaking the surface, then celebrated with tea and a walk to the conservatory where tomatoes climbed twine. Autumn edged the ridge with crisp shadows. Evenings carried cinnamon and a dog from the security cottage that had casually adopted everyone. Victor sat by the window, eyes closed, face tilted toward a moon he could almost sense. Noah leaned against his shoulder, describing shapes honestly. Maria tucked a blanket over both and turned down the lights. Victor lifted a mug and spoke into the quiet. "This house feels alive again." Noah nodded without looking up from a small robot held together by mismatched screws and faith. Maria smiled from the stove. Victor matched his breath to theirs, and understood that family is chosen and defended in ordinary rooms. He reached for Noah's shoulder and found it exactly where love said it would be. "Who's been a hero in your life? Comment to celebrate them." The boy laughed, promising to draw them all with capes tomorrow. Outside, the last glimmer of rain lifted, and the hill breathed easier than it had in years. Therapy sessions continued on a bright calendar pinned near the pantry, each small checkmark a promise kept. Victor practiced scales, Noah called out notes, and Maria timed stretches. Some days, the glow returned for 3 heartbeats. Each glimpse felt like dawn, patient, repeatable, and wholly theirs. They chose hope daily.
6 months later, summer rested on the hill like a grateful breath. The mansion opened its windows to lavender and cut grass, and birds flashed between maples. Gravel sounded easy under careful steps. Victor Langley walked the path with a cane that now felt like a partner rather than a verdict. Noah Carter kept pace, light on his feet, a pencil behind one ear. Maria followed with iced tea. They paused beside the maple planted after the storm. New leaves ticked in the breeze, catching pieces of sky. Victor touched bark with 2 fingers, mapping growth, reading the trunk as if it were a braille page written by weather and patience. "I still hear rain sometimes," he said. "Then I hear you breathing, and the old echo lets go." "The house learned to listen," Noah replied. He pointed toward the conservatory, where herbs stood in terraces and tomatoes blushed like lanterns. "Quinn says you are walking farther each week." "Quinn is a fair witness," Victor answered. He lifted the cane and stepped around a puddle left by sprinklers. "I finished tired, not defeated. There is a difference, and I intend to keep it." They reached the fountain. Water stitched silver threads through stillness, a quiet chorus against swallows. Beyond the garden, the city hummed lightly. The board had been rebuilt with people who asked precise questions and listened. The foundation rewrote protocols so that care would never again hide a blade inside routine. Counsel shepherded the case through hearings with steady hands, and truth held. Noah opened a notebook of sketches, the day's therapy plan, an outreach calendar, a drawing of Maria wearing an apron like a superhero cape. "We promised the new scholars you would review their prototypes before the week ends," he said. "After that you are meeting Emma about fellowship candidates. The music therapist sent scales to practice tonight." "Tonight then," Victor said. He smiled toward the beds. "We build again, only wiser." Maria handed them glasses. "Hydrate the empire," she joked, and they laughed because empires here meant students launching honest work, neighbors whose rent stayed fair after a bridge grant, and a kitchen that labeled every bottle clearly enough for tired people to trust themselves at dawn. "Tell me your sentence," Victor said to Noah as they resumed their circuit. Noah watched sunlight draw diamonds across the fountain's rim. He set the notebook against his hip and gave the words without ceremony, because truth never requires a drum roll. Kids see truth when adults are too scared. Victor lifted his face and let that wisdom land where old noise once roosted. "I needed your eyes," he said. "Sight is larger than pupils. You gave me back a portion of mine." "Family does that," Noah replied. They passed the greenhouse and waved at the security dog napping in the shade. Deliveries arrived for the literacy program, a refurbished laptop for a teenager, and soil sensors for an urban garden partnership. By afternoon, Victor finished a call with partners building an accessibility incubator under the foundation's wing. He asked crisp questions about ergonomics, funding streams, and mentorship ladders. Noah stood near the speaker, drawing arrows between ideas. Maria set cut fruit near the recorder and whispered the next appointment, then grinned when Victor hit every note on the schedule without sliding into the fog that had once taken hours hostage. They walked again before dinner. Warm light poured through leaves, laying gold across stone. Victor tapped the cane against each boundary he wanted to remember, not to fear edges but to claim them. Noah described clouds like sails trimmed for speed. Maria talked about cinnamon bread cooling beside basil that wanted to climb forever. Near the roses, Victor slowed. I have been considering what we owe the day, he said. Not perfection, not performance, attention, courage, repair, and room for joy. He turned toward Noah's voice. You gave us the first two. Maria planted the third. I am learning the fourth again. Joy is a practice, Maria replied. We keep it alive like we kept basil alive in bad weather. Cover, tend, check, share. They reached the terrace where a camera waited on a small tripod. Noah checked the frame, made sure the horizon sat straight, and looked at Victor. Ready? He spoke to the lens the way he had spoken to rooms of investors long ago, only now the cadence carried tenderness instead of swagger. He thanked supporters for patience, the medical team for relentless ordinary heroism, Maria for sovereignty in a season that tried to steal it, and Noah for courage that rewrote a household. He told the short version plainly. Harm visited, courage answered, healing followed, and safeguards now stand where secrets once hid. Noah stepped beside him. You said words are tools, the boy said. Let's use them to invite good company. Victor nodded and smiled into the warm air. Subscribe to join our family of truth seekers. Comment where you're watching from, and share this story to inspire others. He lifted his head as if to hear replies crossing borders and dinner tables. And tell us who taught you bravery. We want to learn their names. Join us now, friends. They closed the camera and returned to the path. A breeze moved through the maple, a soft applause. Victor counted 10 steps and stopped, not from fatigue but from intention. The afternoon still owes us a melody, he said. Inside, the tuned piano waited. Scales would become small rivers, then a song might return to his fingers, honest enough to teach the house a new rhythm. As evening gathered, lights warmed the kitchen without glare. Bread cooled, the dog snored. Noah finished a simple tracking app for therapy milestones, proud of the checkboxes that turned green when Victor met a goal. Maria proofread, corrected a comma, and insisted on an alert reminding everyone to rest. They ate on the terrace. The city blinked awake in the distance. Victor listened, reaching for laughter the way a sailor reaches for a familiar star. It arrived on time. He raised his glass. To the day we almost lost, he said. To the day we won back. To the next one we will shape together. Noah clinked lightly. To the eyes that live in courage, Maria added. To kitchens that smell like cinnamon and not coins. After the dishes, they took one more loop beneath a sky deepening toward indigo. Bats stitched quick seams overhead. Somewhere, a neighbor played a trumpet, warm notes drifting over hedges like kind news. Victor leaned on the cane with comfort rather than need. A faint brightness stirred at the edge of his left field, a firefly caught by vision and then freed. He smiled toward that spark and kept walking. Before bed, he wrote a single line on a card he kept for anchors. The words stayed simple because simple often carries the most. We stayed awake. We chose each other. We built again. He slid the card back, set the cane against the nightstand, and listened while the garden breathed, steady as promise.